today to the, Bold Punjab, one of our, flagship events. I've spent quite a lot of time organising this and bringing this together. So Bold Punjab is founded in Melbourne. I'm based in Melbourne, but my background is Punjabi. We're all about community and entrepreneurship, and we're particularly interested in empowering women. Some housekeeping. We're recording this today, but don't worry, you won't be recorded. It'll just be sort of the panel members whose faces will be on this. And, you know, ਜੇ phone ਹੈਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ phone side ਤੇ ਰੱਖ ਦਿਓ, meaning if you got a phone, please put it away. It wouldn't get your undivided attention. I would be honored by that. Thank you so much. A little bit about me. I'm Daisy. Like I said, I'm based here in Melbourne where there's a thunderstorm. My background's Punjabi. I grew up speaking Punjabi. My parents didn't ever let me speak English at home. So I learnt English when they first sent me to a babysitter where I didn't know what I was saying. And up until the age of 16, I spoke Punjabi from home. I've been to Punjab a few times and back to India, and I have a strong desire to create a platform for other young leaders to elevate the work that they're doing. Outside of this, I work for Deakin University, managing entrepreneurship programs. And I've also served on the board as one of the youngest directors in Australia of a public listed company. We operated community banks, and I just only recently resigned to actually focus on this more because this is what lights me up. If I can have my next slide, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and which we are, which is the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people in Melbourne. And I guess if you're in India, acknowledging our ancestors is always a great place to start. And the people who have come before us, who have been on this land for much longer than us, and the wisdom that we can take from them. Global community partners, quickly want to acknowledge these awesome folks. So we've got Spark Deakin, which is also where I work, Australian Government via Australia-India Council, Young Sikh Professionals Network, where I've had a lovely time volunteering for a few years, Girls X Tech, which is founded by actually Bhatia, who's also from Australia, and he's spent a lot of time in Punjab because his mission is also to empower others. And UNSW Sydney Founders, a brilliant university here who's also been supporting our work. The Indian Feminist, run by two New Zealander Punjabi girls. They've got about 250,000 followers on Instagram. And thank you for sharing the message about this event with your platform. Asian Women Festival, also run by a British Punjabi girl, Shani. Shani is phenomenal. I met her in London last year and I was amazed. She started the biggest ever conference where I think roughly 1,000 women showed up to learn about empowerment, and some flew in from all over Europe. Hello, South Asians. Young India Foundation, founded by Sudhanshu Kaushik, who is phenomenal. You can look him up, and that's for political representation for young people in India. It's secular, it's apolitical itself. And the government Startup Punjab, who have generously spread this event to their networks and invited folks. So thank you for being our community partners. All right, I'm going to get started. I would like to introduce Ajay to share a little bit about his journey. So Ajay Bhatia is a managing director for car sales. He studied at Harvard Business School, and he's also involved in some of Stanford's Digital Cities programs. And I'm going to just hand the stage over to you, Ajay, to share a little bit about your journey.
Thanks, Daisy, and thank you for doing some amazing work in the community. It's hard to meet someone like you who's got so much energy. You know, you've set really high standards, and you know, for all the listeners, please, I'm not gonna try and even come close to those standards. So don't expect too much. But I will share my story, and I will share what's unique to me, and there's always lessons from everyone's story. So I've got 5 or 7 minutes to sort of squeeze that in. And hopefully you see, you know, a couple of, even if you take away that one thing from the story, that will be good, right? So I was born in New Delhi, and I came to Australia in 1992, and that was the time that Australia was having a recession it had to have. For those of you who've either read a bit of history or listened to old Paul Keating. Paul Keating was the Prime Minister back then, and he basically said, look, we are having the recession we had to have, so it was a great time to land here. By the way, Australia hasn't had a recession since, so and now we're having a recession again. So it was a really interesting time because we came here. My dad chose not to come with us because he still had a job in India. My mum came, I came, my sister came. Times were quite difficult because we didn't really come with a lot of money. We're just a middle class family from India, right? My mum was a teacher, dad worked for Air India, dad continued to work in India, and we all came here. So it was incumbent on the three of us to settle down. We were teenagers, me and my sister, and my mum was there, and my mum didn't really get the license to teach in schools like she had in India, etc. So it was a lot of hard work, and if we had more time, I'd describe all the difficulties. But representative is, we used to go to calls and we used to have a budget of $20, and we used to think, in $20 we're going to buy all the groceries we can. And I don't know if you guys in India have the context of $20. It's not a lot of money, and that's where we started. But then I worked in Pizza Hut side by side, like you do here. But coming from India, that's quite a shock to the system, thinking, oh, you're going to work in Pizza Hut. Even though we were middle class in India, but even middle class people in India don't work in Pizza Hut. So I had to do things that I never imagined I'd do, but I'm so glad that I did it. And there were so many lessons learned through that hard work, and what it brings to you in terms of doing all of those things that I believe all of us should do. And I do make good pizzas now. That's the positive too. And I can even do the bread myself, by the way. Don't even need someone to give me the bread. So moved on from there. University and all of that happened, and right at the start of the university, did a little bit of entrepreneurial stuff, which was really good. I think in second year of my university, I launched a small company, nothing big, but it did mean that I got paid that year $44,000, and that was second year of my university. And for me, that was the tipping point where I made my university part-time and I started working full-time, and got into the company here and the culture here and everything else, and started sort of embracing what was Australia and what was going to be my new life here. And look, slowly got into a couple of jobs. The inflection point for me, which is what I want to talk about here with this group, and I want to talk about a couple of inflection points, but the first one is a decision-making one that you all will face. And I saw, Daisy, that when you put up the poll, a very large number of young aspiring entrepreneurs here. So this might appeal to some of you guys. And at that point, I was working for a company called Fairfax. Those of you who are in Australia probably know them, but those of you not in Australia, it's a 200-year-old Australian media company, the oldest media company in Australia. Back then, it was worth about $5 billion. And I was working in a sort of a medium level management role. Life was good. I was earning good money, whatever that means. And there was no need to change anything. Zero need to change anything. I was in Sydney, by the way, not in Melbourne back then. And so thinking back to that time, that is truly the inflection point in my life. If I could do a movie of sliding doors, if I didn't take that decision versus a different decision, everything would be different. At that point came an opportunity where a startup approached me. Startup was called carsales.com. And this startup was very, very smaller. It wasn't publicly listed. It was probably worth $100 million. And if that, probably was worth a lot less than that. And had 50 people working for this startup, or less than 50. And the company I was about to leave had 10,000 people, 5 billion in market cap, really good profile because it's a media company and all that sort of stuff. For many reasons that I won't have enough time to explain here, I took the opportunity, and I went with the startup. I had to move to Melbourne, which was a big decision for me and the family as well. And I initially commuted to Melbourne for 2.5 to 3 years. Every year, every week used to commute on a Monday and go back on a Thursday. So life was hard. That's when I started drinking coffee first, by the way. Never used to drink coffee. And then once I started traveling so much, I had to start drinking. When I say start drinking coffee and other stuff too. So anyhow, we sort of moved on, and it was really an interesting journey, guys, because we sort of went from that 100 million non-public listed company to now what's a $5.2 billion valuation. And I think this is a decision that you're all going to face at some point in your life, or a decision that is parallel to this decision of that magnitude. And you're not going to be sure whether you're going to get this right or not, right? I could have easily joined the wrong startup, and all of this could have gone badly, right? But the thing that I hold on to is being clear on what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So there are several points in my career where I've been offered very interesting choices. An example is I've been offered jobs so when I started at car sales, I was the CIO of car sales, so running its technology effectively. And my goal was to become the CEO. And so along the way, I got approached for many jobs because car sales was booming as a company, and everyone wanted to sort of tap you on the shoulder and go, come and work for us. So I got taps from ASX 50 companies, ASX 10 companies to come and be the CIO and get paid lots of money and all that sort of stuff. Every time I rejected that, and I rejected that for one person because I knew what my goal was, and I was very clear in my goal. It wasn't another CIO job. So I never took that up, kept going, and kept following what I was really clear about, what I wanted to do. But quite apart from that journey, there are times when I've been faced with other decisions as well, and decisions where it's still been, I guess, for example, a lot of money that you could get in a CEO job, but I've declined to do that. And where I sort of come back to, and maybe for you guys, this is going to come at some stage as well, is you got to understand your value system. And when you take a decision, it's not just about what you get, but also about what you leave behind. And in some decisions, what you leave behind is just too much. And for me, that has been a really important component. Then the last bit, because I'm just conscious of time here, is a purpose issue as well. So right through this journey, as you get older and older, you get closer and closer to thinking about what legacy you're leaving. And some of you are more aware at even a younger age, and kudos to you, because I certainly wasn't as aware at a younger age, but you could certainly do that, right? So as I've started to get older, there's this movie that I watched once, I think it's called 10,000 BC. And there's a lot of things I forgot about the movie, but the one thing that I do remember is, and I won't get the dialogue right because, I'm certainly not good at that, but I'll get the meaning right. In that movie, this guy asks, he's lost and he's asking his uncle, so what was my dad like? Describe my dad to me. And he goes, your dad was a special man. And, there are some men, and remember, this is 10,000 BC, so it was only talked about as men. But he said, there are some men who draw a circle around them, and they're good people, and they look after their family. And that's their circle. And they look after their family really, really well. Your dad was not one of them. Your dad was one of those people where the circle was much, much larger, where a lot more people, the whole community came into that circle. And he was a leader, not just of the family and a supporter and protector of the family, but of the whole community. I'm currently on the board of a couple of non-profit companies, and one of them is Myeloma Australia. Myeloma is a cancer charity. And, I guess like any sickness, myeloma is not limited to a particular community. Every community suffers from it. And I often get asked the question, so why are you on the myeloma board? Is there someone in your family that suffers from myeloma? The answer to that is simply no, no one suffers from myeloma. In fact, I've been blessed from a cancer perspective. Our family hasn't had cancer. But the reason I'm on the charity is because you don't need a particular reason to be in that charity and to be helping people. If the reason is, oh, I'm on the myeloma board because such and such in my family got affected by myeloma, I go, I'm not so sure whether that is the right reason for me. Similarly, the other passion that I do have is it's probably very relevant to this group. It's women in leadership. And that is something that I see all around me. I've seen that right from the outset. We talk about women equality and everything else, but often the figures are now there's 33% women in this profession and 66% men or something like that. But when you actually look at the leadership positions, the figure gets worse and worse and worse and worse as you get up the tree. So that is something that I'm passionate about fixing. One of the things I'm doing with UTS, which was where I studied, did my bachelor's at UTS in Sydney. So I'm sponsoring a scholarship this year, which is supposed to be launched in August, but I suppose it will be launched in September now. So it's $25,000 for a woman to do an MBA in entrepreneurship. I'm doing the same next year as well. So this is a yearly thing. And the reason I'm doing that is because I find that it's really and I found this with myself as well, being an Indian in Australia. It was somewhat similar, and still, by the way, is somewhat similar. I feel a lot of us, whether you're a woman, whether you are a person of color in a country where predominantly it's not a country of color, or even in India where we're so divided with north, south, east, west, all types of religion. We're all stereotyped as you must be like that. And the problem is that in Australia, for example, there are not a lot of colored CEOs of companies, especially ASX companies. 3% of the ASX 200 is colored. And I think women is just a little bit marginally more than that. So there are no examples for people to follow. And there also, the stereotype is still the middle-aged white man. The stereotype is unfortunately not an Indian man. I'm short, by the way, a short Indian man.
It is indeed.
Yeah, and that's the stereotypes that we do need to break. And my advice to all of you is don't worry about the stereotype, and you are probably going to have to work a little bit harder than others. Just accept it. Don't whinge about it. Be the example, so the next generation you'll make it easier for them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ajay.